Welcome students, welcome to the class of Fundamentals of Psychology. I'm Dr. Cindy De Silva from DCT's Dempe College of Arts and Science, Miramar, Goa. So the title of the unit is Memory, that's Unit 4, and the module name is Models of Memory, which includes levels of processing, parallel distributed processing, and information processing model. So in this class, we are going to study about the models of memory, levels of processing, parallel distributed processing, and information processing model. At the end of this class, the students will be able to describe various models of memory and acquaint with the different types of memory. So moving on to the first one, that is levels of processing. The levels of processing model of memory assumes that information that is more deeply processed or processed according to its meaning rather than just the second or physical characteristics of the word or words will be remembered more efficiently and for a longer period of time. This is basically the depth of processing. So thinking about the meaning of something is a deeper level of processing and results in longer retention of the word. So normally as children we would by heart and learn information, but today as adolescents and adults we try to understand the meaning of the concept and remember the concepts better. So the more in depth we study, the more in depth we try and understand the meaning of the concepts, we are able to remember for a longer period of time. Moving on to the next, that is parallel distributed processing. According to the parallel distributed processing model of memory, memory is seen as simultaneous process with the creation and storage of memories taking place across a series of mental networks stretched across the brain. Instead of information for a memory being processed only in the series of steps, the brain performs several different processes, all running at the same time or parallel to each other. This means that the brain functions the brain functions simultaneously, and therefore we are able to remember the information. Moving on to the next, that is information processing model. Now, according to this model, the processing of information for memory storage is similar to the way a computer processes memory in a series of 3 stages. So if you look at the picture here, we have the 3 stages, that is the sensory memory, working memory, and the long-term memory. In the diagram, we can clearly see that there's a stimuli, that means that we sense or we perceive objects. So that's where the information is stored in the sensory memory, where the duration is very short. That's around half to 3 seconds, and the capacity is 3 to 7 units. The information that we pay attention to then moves on to the working memory, where the capacity is 7 to 9 chunks and the duration is 5 to 15 seconds. And further on, when we encode, it moves on to the long-term memory, where the capacity is infinite and the duration is permanent. Now, just in case when the information is been processed, we tend to not pay attention to, that information is forgotten in the long run. So the only information that we pay attention to moves on to the next storage. So Atkinson and Schiffer in 1968 described this model, and they spoke about the 3 systems, that is the sensory memory, short-term memory, and the long-term memory. So moving on to sensory memory, let's get into details. So this is the first stage of memory, and this includes information that enters the nervous system through the sensory system. So that could be our eyes or ears. So basically what we see, what we hear, that's how we register the information in the sensory memory. The capacity of sensory memory is pretty large and can hold many items at once. However, the duration is very short. Now, this is divided into 2 types, that is iconic memory and echoic memory. Iconic memory is the visual sensory memory, which means it captures the pictures, that is the objects that we see. This is part of iconic memory. And echoic memory is the auditory information, that is the sounds that we hear is been captured by our memory and the information is stored. However, the capacity of the echoic memory is smaller than the iconic memory. So attention is needed to transfer information to the working memory. So in the diagram, as we have discussed earlier, the information that we pay attention to shifts to the next storage. However, the information which we do not pay attention to is forgotten. Moving on to the next, that is short-term memory. Information moves from sensory memory to the short-term memory through the process of selective attention. That is the ability to focus on one stimulus from among all the sensory input. Example of this could be a cocktail party effect. That is, whenever we are in a crowd or whenever we are in a party, if we hear our name or if we hear a similar name, we tend to pay attention to that. So, despite of all the noise that we have around us, we selectively pay attention to the sounds that we wish to or which we are acquainted with. So this is cocktail party effect, where we selectively pay attention to, and when we pay selective attention, this information is then shifted, or this information further moves on to the short-term memory or the working memory. The capacity of this memory is limited, and it can hold on up to 7 to 5 or 9 items, and the duration is brief storage, that is about 30 seconds. One of the methods that we normally use to sort of include more information in our short-term memory is chunking. And this is a way to fool our short-term memory into holding more information than it can usually hold. Maintenance rehearsal, this is mental or verbal repetition. So this helps for the information to stay longer. So the moment there is information in the working memory, when we rehearse or when we repeat the information time and again, then this information remains for a longer period of time. Let's understand what is chunking with a small example. So this is basically grouping small bits of information into larger units of information. Now we can clearly see that we have a series of numbers, that's 7, 9, 5, 6, 8, 1, 3, 2, 4. So if we try to remember these numbers as single digits, it's not really possible, or it's pretty difficult. However, when we remember these numbers, we chunk them. So instead of remembering them as single digits, we can remember them as chunks. That is 795 is one chunk, then we have 681 as one chunk, and 324 as another chunk. So this is one of the technique that we use to sort of store more information in the short-term memory. Moving on to the next, that is long-term memory. So once information passes from sensory to working memory, it can be encoded into long-term memory. This organizes and stores information, and it is more passive form of storage than working memory. So the working memory is sort of active, and therefore it is known as working memory. However, the long-term memory is more passive in nature. The capacity is unlimited, and the duration is permanent. The memories may be available but not accessible. So sometimes we have certain memories, but at the moment we want to retrieve them, we are not able to retrieve them. This is because of if we do not rehearse, then the information tends to be difficult to have access to this information. So memories of childhood are probably always there, but people cannot always retrieve those memories because we do not rehearse these memories every day. So it is difficult for us to have access to these memories. The best way to encode information into the long-term memory in an organized fashion is to make it meaningful through elaborate rehearsal. So when we elaborate, when we try and practice it every day or we rehearse every day, we tend to remember this information for a longer period of time. And when we rehearse it every day, it is also accessible whenever it is required. So therefore, if you have noticed in your exams, when we study just one day before the exams, we remember till the exam probably, and after that we don't remember the information. But if you prepare yourself for 3 months, wherein you rehearse every day, where you practice every day, then you realize that even after exams, after years together, you would still remember the information. This is because the information is now stored in your long-term memory. So we also have the types of long-term memories. The first one is the procedural, that is the non-declarative memory. This is the memory for skills. It involves use of series of steps or procedures, for example, riding bicycle, and it is also called as the implicit memory. That is the memory without awareness, memory that affects our behavior but cannot consciously be recalled. So once you know to ride a bicycle, you don't really pay attention on pedaling and stuff. It goes automatically. Even when you're driving a car, you don't really pay attention to the clutch and brake because it happens automatically once you're an expert in driving. So this is more of an implicit memory. Then we have the next one, that is declarative memory. This is memory for facts and information that make up knowledge, and it is also known as the explicit memory. Now this is a memory with awareness, and the information can be consciously recollected. So this is mostly based on facts and information which can update our knowledge. The two types of declarative memory include semantic memory and episodic memory. Semantic memory refers to meaning, that is, awareness of meanings of words or concepts. So, when we are learning something, we tend to find the meaning of it, and that gets stored, or that is known as a semantic memory. And episodic memory includes the memory for episodes in our lives. So, if we have gone through a traumatic situation or the happiest day of our life, so these become the episodes, and therefore it is known as the episodic memory. So, any information that is to do with the events is known as episodic memory, and the information that is related to the meaning or where the meaning is attached while learning, that is known as the semantic memory. And then we have the semantic network model. Now, this assumes that information is stored in the brain in a connected fashion with concepts that are related to each other, stored physically closer to each other, and then concepts that are not highly related. So, when we tend to learn information, what we do is we learn based on the similarity of the information of the concepts. For example, if you go in a market and you see fruits and vegetables, we tend to code them, or we tend to store this information based on the similarity. So all the objects, or for example, pineapple, bananas, apples, we will take them together as fruits, and other things like cabbage, carrot, we will consider them as vegetables. So based on the similarity, we tend to sort of group them and store the information. So in all, what we have done today is we have learned what is memory, okay, and the memory is further classified into short-term memory and long-term memory. Now, in long-term memory, we further have two types, that is explicit memory and the implicit memory. That is, explicit includes your conscious, which is based on facts, and implicit is based on the unconscious, where you don't really have to pay attention to, and the behavior is automatic. In explicit, we have semantic and episodic. That is, the semantic includes the general knowledge, and episodic includes the specific events. And in implicit, we have the priming and procedural memory. These are the references. Thank you.